Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I am Stokely Marshall. I'm going to read a quotation. Quote, I have had a front row seat to observe the efforts of the institution, the United Nations, to dismantle laws and policies reflective of traditional values in countries across the world. Jamaica, at this very moment, is at the epicenter of these efforts, unquote. This is a quote from an article written by Elizabeth Corin, published in the Gleaner, March 26, 2021. And this morning, it is the inspiration for our discussion across both watches. Are Jamaican laws under pressure? We have online today Elizabeth Corin, Director of United Nations Advocacy in New York, and she is of Alliance Defending Freedom International, and we ought to be having as well at this time Dr. Daniel Thomas, President of the Love March movement. Good morning, Ms. Corin, and Dr. Thomas, are you on with us?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Dr. Thomas. Good morning, Ms. Corin. Your article is very interesting, published in the Gleaner.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Most recently, towards the end of March, on March 26, 2021 to be exact. And what makes it interesting is that you have very succinctly outlined a number of things which many Jamaicans are aware of, but the way you express them is quite concise and very much to the point. However, what inspired you to write this article or to pen it, and why are you someone who is the director of UN advocacy in the United States, in New York, representing Alliance Defending Freedom, concerned about what happens in a country like Jamaica? What inspired this piece that you wrote?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning, and this is such an important topic. And, really I felt like I had a responsibility to write this and to shine a light on this issue. As you can read in my article, I've been at the UN now for 10 years. And in my time there, what I see every day is I see diplomats from countries, primarily from countries from the developing world, so all over the developing world, Africa, Latin America, Asia, the Caribbean, every day being put in a position where they have to stand up against Western powers primarily and the UN bureaucracy itself to defend national values, to defend things that really do fall under the issue of these particular countries' national sovereignty. And so these are issues relating to all sorts of social and human rights issues, and really don't come down to matters of international law. They come down to the way in which a country should be able to decide to run itself for itself. And so with regard to this issue, with regard to Jamaica, like I've said, I've seen the Caribbean stand up for itself for years and years and years and really do a fantastic job of this. And then so for me to find out in my capacity working at the UN, that they're pouring in tremendous sums of money into the Caribbean, but also into Jamaica in particular, for things that I know that I've seen over the years really do violate your national laws and your national values, policies that you have on the ground there. For me, it's a responsibility really to air them, not because it's my business to decide whether or not these things move forward, but because it's yours. And so I want to make sure that you all have the opportunity that you know from the UN perspective, really what you're up against and the money that's coming in, the policies that they're trying to push, so that you guys can mount the best defense possible.
Can you just, for the benefit of the listeners, enlighten us as to what exactly Alliance Defending Freedom does, and also what are some of the issues or some of the points that you notice are being, as you indicated, Western powers at the United Nations level are, as it were, seeking to promote, and how are developing countries responding to those? First of all, what is Alliance Defending Freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an organization, a human rights organization with a Christian focus, and we're comprised primarily of lawyers.
With a Christian focus?
And I work with a team at the UN with a Christian focus. That's right. So we are an organization that advocates for human rights for all, and the lens that we do that through is through a Christian perspective.
Okay.
And my job is actually quite simple. So I show up at the UN with a team, and our work is to come alongside the diplomats, to come alongside the country representatives you have at the UN, and to offer them legal resources to empower them and to put them in a stronger position when they go into UN negotiations and work through the resolutions of the UN. So what the UN does is every day it's in session, it churns out thousands of resolutions on every issue under the sun, every issue that you can imagine. I promise the UN has a resolution on that topic. And the way that it works is country representatives meet and they hash through every single line, every single word, down to the last comma, until you arrive at a solution that's amenable to everyone. Instead of it working in this way, what ends up happening is that the more powerful countries get the say. Excuse me?
And what are some of the issues that have arisen?
Yeah. So the issues that you have, I mean, this will be a situation in which you have a resolution on health. On a specific topic, you could have a resolution on malaria, things that are very particular to countries. And instead of focusing on these issues, very quickly, in almost all circumstances, it devolves into a fight over abortion, over this radical concept called comprehensive sexuality education, over various mechanisms that are inserted into resolutions to derail the traditional family. So you have a situation in which they're never really talking about the real issue at hand, and they're constantly being diverted, losing focus, talking about controversial social issues.
No, obviously we can't discuss everything this morning on the Morning Watch. However, you touched on one issue that I'd like you to say something a little bit more on. That issue in relation to comprehensive sexuality education. Can you say something more on that, and why is that such a major issue in terms of how you seek to guide countries from the developing world?
Yeah, this is something that really is at the forefront of the fight at the UN, and I can't tell you how sad it is to be sitting in a UN session where there's so many crucial issues at stake, and the session is going nowhere. There's just no movement. There's no resolution because everyone is stuck on this issue. And comprehensive sexuality education, you frequently hear it go by the acronym CSE, is a program that was actually developed by the UN system, so by UNESCO. A lot of us know about UNESCO because it's the part of the UN, the agency of the UN that also designates World Heritage Sites. So it's a real question what that agency in particular is doing, crafting these really, really radical programs. And so, in essence, the program is crafted in such a way.
What makes it radical, Ms. Corinne? Because I'm sure persons would generally agree that children ought to be educated in terms of the reproductive cycle and the pros and cons of engaging in sexual behavior at too early an age. So what would be so radical about it in your mind?
Yeah, and that's so important. I think we can all agree that children need to receive information, basic information in accordance with their age on their bodies and how they work, on sexual and reproductive health. And these are things that there really isn't disagreement on, especially at the level of the international community. What this program does is not that. What this program does is advance these very, very controversial, very inappropriate concepts for children starting as young. Some of the programs say age 3, some say age 4 or 5, introducing children to these concepts of sexuality, encouraging them to engage in risky behaviors, to do things that no parent, I really believe no parent, regardless of their worldview, would want their children thinking or doing about at such a young age, starting to pose questions about their gender and other things that really are just inappropriate at any age, but are especially egregious for really young children. And I encourage people, if they doubt whether or not these programs are controversial, really the easiest thing to do is just to read the actual program materials. These are things that I personally would feel uncomfortable reading out loud to my children or to read out loud in any context, but it's so simple just to go online. You can check out the CSE curriculums that are advanced by the UN, and you can check out for yourself, do these things look like the kind of topics that I would want my children knowing about before they even reach the age of reason?
Ms. Corin, we're upon a break already. We're going to take a break now. We want to hear from Dr. Daniel Thomas as we continue to wrap up the main watch. The Morning Watch will be right back after this break.
This is Love 101, the family station. It's now 7:15.
We're working on a brighter day, you don't have to fret. You know your family secure, you don't need no stress. It's like you run a 5K, set the pace, win the race, celebrate, and you still never bust no sweat. We see we brother and we sister, this is how we heal them. Easy now, you and Guardian Life, it's a nation we're building. Many hearts, but we all want the same thing. Live secure and live easy. La la
It's your one and only fluffy diva, Miss Kitty, aka the Lala Boss, with loads of gifts for you from Digicel. Activate a new 7-day Digicel Prime Barata bundle and get everything you want and more for only $675. Enjoy unlimited YouTube, social media, and local calls. You also get 49 gigabytes for more sports, music, and movies on Digi apps, and 2 gigabytes of any used data. This sound like no niceness.
Get it all when you activate the new 7-day Digicel Prime Barata bundle in the My Digicel app. Limited time offer.
JN Money Card. Send the money. More withdraw in a hurry. JN Money Card free. With your TRN and your ID. And when me not walk with cash, me just swipe like that. From abroad to card. Get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card sent from abroad. JN Money Card.
Available at JN Money locations across Jamaica. Conditions apply.
Nation, rain or shine, any weather. When we go bold, we go virgin. Quality paint, no faded colors. When we go bold, we go virgin. Let your imagination run free. Pick a color, any color for the space what you need. When we say it bold, that mean it not feel. Quality in every color, 7-year guarantee. When we go bold, we go virgin. Watch your color. When we go bold, we go virgin. Rain or shine, any color you need. When we go bold, we go virgin.
This is an important announcement from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The Ministry of Health and Wellness wishes to advise the public that effective 10 a.m. on Monday, March 22, persons 75 years and older who wish to be vaccinated must make an appointment before visiting a vaccination site. Appointments can be made by visiting moh.gov.jm or by calling 8881-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. You may ask a friend, relative, or healthcare provider to assist you with booking an appointment. Persons are asked to make or take a government-issued ID or letter from a justice of the peace to the vaccination center. Additionally, vaccination will continue for the priority groups. The ministry thanks the public for their cooperation.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. And in the main and second watches today, we are looking at Jamaican laws under pressure. And our guests are Elissa Corrin. She is the director of UN Advocacy in New York for Alliance Defending Freedom International. And we have Dr. Daniel Thomas, president of the Love March movement. Now, Ms. Corrin, before we bring in Dr. Daniel Thomas, there's an aspect of your article published in the Gleaner just recently, March 26, 2021, where you are stating here, and I quote, "At UN headquarters, I directly observed the push by powerful countries to force governments of the developing world to adopt radical education programs that essentially disconnect children from the authority of their parents." Full stop. It continues. "The insistence is on teaching children that they can determine their own gender or their own sexual reproductive health services, meaning abortion, and make their own choices regarding high-risk activities, all without the consent of their parents." Now, Ms. Corrin, this is a very strong statement, or these are very strong statements to make against what you describe as powerful countries. And are you sure that this is a claim you can make? And if you are so convinced that this is a claim you can make, how do you defend it? Because Jamaica, for example, does rely heavily on support from countries which are developed to assist in a number of areas. So in terms of that very strong statement you've made against powerful countries, how do you support that statement?
Mm-hmm. That's such a good question. And I think that really goes to the heart of the matter, which is, is this dynamic that I'm describing between the West and the developing world, is it really true? And I'm certain it is, and I wish it wasn't. There's various ways that I see this firsthand that may not be readily accessible to the public. But, one of the things that's very evident at the UN is a complete refusal on the part of developed countries, on the part of the European Union and other like-minded states, to include any reference to state sovereignty in United Nations documents. So we all know that the way that the international order works, the way that the UN is supposed to work, is with a correspondent respect for the right of every country to govern itself. And so when you have countries that are major world players refusing to even acknowledge the word sovereignty at the United Nations, you understand really what they're up to. And it's a game of throwing money around. So, so many countries of the developing world are dependent not only on these Western governments, but also, on the UN in particular, for funding for really important things, for things that relate to their national health, for things that relate to, the safety of people in their country, human rights things. And so to say that this money is all coming with so many coercive strings attached is a really big deal, because most of these governments are in a position where they really need this money. And most of these governments are in a position where they're not really, they don't really have a way to say, we'll take the money, but we don't want the strings. So it really becomes a very, very coercive interplay. And I see it all the time. I see it as well in the issue of parents. There's a complete resistance to the idea of parental rights. And so you have time and again, you have countries of the developing world that still acknowledge, the fundamental world order in which parents have the rights and responsibilities to not only take care of their children, but also, while they're minors, to tell them what to do. You consistently have representatives from the developed world refusing to acknowledge that even such a thing as parents exist. And this is something that comes down to a very ideological worldview where they want to push certain rights that aren't real human rights, that are radical agendas that correspond with a certain notion of false rights that they've established. And they want to push this. And the one thing that they know that can stop this is parents. The same as with sovereignty. These are things that are roadblocks for them, that are sticking points. So I see it every day in my work. I know that it's true. And I think that we just need to get the word out there and encourage governments to stand strong. And I know that a lot of governments really require international assistance, and that's a position that the West should be, happy to generously provide assistance to them, but it shouldn't come with these coercive strings.
Dr. Daniel Thomas, we have heard Alyssa Corin, and can you remind us, the listeners that is, as to what the Love March movement does, and how does what Alyssa Corin, what she has said, how does it square with the position that the Love March movement takes on a number of these matters, sir?
Right. So thank you again so much for having me, Stokely. So the Love March movement is a youth Christian organization for sexual purity and the family, and we do advocacy and ministry. And what Ms. Corin here is mentioning is squarely in line with our advocacy mandate, which is really to defend the sexual purity and the family on a national platform, protecting laws that uphold them and opposing laws or any change in the laws that would go against sexual purity and the family. In reading this powerful article, it's titled "International Efforts Seek to Redefine Jamaican Laws and Values." In reading the article, it really struck me that there are these powerful organizations and countries which have kind of partnered together to particularly target Jamaica and the Caribbean region. That's something that the Love March movement has been saying for years. And this provides so much hard evidence as to the most recent actions that they have taken in terms of comprehensive sexuality education. That has definitely been a concern for us because of, we've been exposed to some of the material already. We may recall in 2012 when parents raised a stink about the HFLE curriculum in our schools they were asking children in 7th grade, asking them how do they know that they are not attracted to the same gender? How do they know that they don't like sexual intercourse in a particular way? And so very inappropriate questions. The same thing resurged in our children's homes recently. We may recall that as well. And so that is what do you mean by that? So there was a curriculum which was rolled out in our children's homes under the leadership of Jamaicans for Justice, okay, and Caroline Gomes. And so during that whole saga, persons can do the research as to.
Yes, that was
yeah, man. So I'm just alluding to what this material is, right? So comprehensive sexuality education is that kind of material that we have already been having to, that we have suddenly found in several parts of our society before in years previous. And what this article alludes to now is that there's a very current, very powerful effort to bring this kind of agenda back again to our doorstep. They have put almost 300 million Jamaican dollars. That would be the Jamaican equivalent. They have put all that money in to advance this agenda. And I think another thing that struck me as well is that these organizations, they generally come seeming so benevolent, and like, you know, they really care about the issues, like the Spotlight Initiative, which is really supposed to, at the outset, it was about focusing on gender-based violence, empowering women. And then later on, we see on the tail end of that comprehensive sexuality education kind of coming in under the radar. They launched the effort in February. Persons may check the UNFPA Caribbean Facebook page. I just scrolled down to February to see some of the material that they have launched and some of the plans that they have put in place. This is of great concern. Every parent in Jamaica should be concerned. Every teacher should be concerned. And we need to really raise the alarm. So I'm very grateful to Ms. Coren for writing this article and bringing some focus and her perspective on the matter. She's a first-hand witness that this is taking place and that there's a need for us to be aware and for us to be ready to prepare to defend ourselves against these radical agendas.
And just for the record, I just want to point out to listeners that there's an article in the Gleaner from as far back. I'm looking at one here, June 18, 2014. JFJ apologizes for sex education course, and the headline continues. So that was some time ago, some years ago actually, and JFJ did in fact apologize for that. So I just want to say that for the record in light of what you just said, Dr. Thomas. Dr. Thomas, you're about to go shortly. And the whole matter of Jamaica receiving funds from overseas countries abroad rather, and I'm sure that there is no record. Well, I'm putting it to you, Dr. Thomas. Do you know of any record that indicates that Jamaica is accepting funds from any relevant country in exchange for doing things which are highly controversial as far as Jamaican mores and values are concerned? Because I am not aware of it. Is that what you're trying to say, Dr. Thomas?
Well, what I am saying is that we need to have a very high index of suspicion. Where you have a situation where there's a country like ours, which is dependent in this pandemic situation, extremely dependent for more and more support. And we have countries which have a track record and clear evidence now of very dark intentions towards our region. And with a lot of money to back up their plans, we need to really have a high index of suspicion. So anytime we hear our government talking about signing memorandums of understanding behind closed doors and having to make concessions, etc., we need to ask questions about what are these concessions that are being made? Are these concessions related to the life of our unborn children? Are these concessions related to our traditional family values, the law against buggery, and etc., marriage being between a man and a woman? I would also like to just remind us as well that the recent...
Unfortunately, we have to go now because we're upon the 7:30 break. Dr. Thomas, I know you have to leave us now. Thank you, sir. Ms. Carney,
yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me.
And please, we're going to go to the newspaper shortly, etc., and look at our feedback questions, social media questions, the morning walk. We'll be back after this break.
You're tuned to Love 101, the family station. It's now 7:30.
Only Flow gives you everything you want in every plan. Unlimited local calls and texts, plus unlimited data for the apps you really want, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. No other network comes close. Flow has plans from 2 to 30 days, and every plan has everything you want. Dial *129 *6 numbers and to activate your 7-day plan with everything you want for only $675. Conditions apply.
You know how Jamaican people do everything extra, right? So why should planning your retirement be any different? Introducing JNGI Silver Shield. 2-in-1 coverage for motor vehicle and home including contents. See? Extra! Imagine 25% JN member discount, emergency roadside assistance, accident forgiveness up to $1 million and more. JNGI Silver Shield. Exclusively for members of the Caribbean community of retired persons. Visit jngi.com. JNGI. We'll help you find a way. A member of the JN Group.
49 years later and still going strong. Under the Law helps you to know your rights and how the laws of Jamaica can help you defend those rights. The program comes to you on Love 101 FM on Thursdays through the kind sponsorship of the Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy. Under the Law, Thursdays at 6:20 a.m., 2:55, 6:45, and 9:10 p.m. on Love 101 FM.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Let's take a look at the newspaper to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And it's the Gleaner this morning online. We have here a story of much concern. We are looking at rope. It's very difficult for me to read this one. Very difficult to read it. Rope used to strangle Shanice. And we have another story here. Nagohead taximan resident mourn tragic death of elderly cabbie, Butty. That was his, I suppose, pet name or nickname, Butty. We also now move to the Gleaner. And in the Gleaner, another story, same story rather, but reported in another newspaper of similar concern. 50-year-old mechanic charged with murder of Denise Jackson. Another grave one here, saying Catherine man charged with rape, extortion, and child cruelty. Very difficult to read those stories, and those and others in both major daily newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, how do you think Jamaicans should respond to efforts to change our laws on parental rights, abortion, and sexual relations? If you haven't done so yet, leave a comment on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Digital Prime brought a plan, now the people them start a plan. That's a whole heap of service in a you want. Whole heap of gigabytes, YouTube, music, sports and movies, extra talk time in a one. Everything you want and what's fun to the new 7-day Digital Prime brought a bundle.
Get it all when you activate the new 7-day Digicel Prime brought a bundle in the My Digicel app. Limited time offer.
Everything you want and what's fun to the new 7-day Digicel Prime brought a bundle.
JN Money Card. Send the money. More withdraw in a hurry. JN Money Card free. With your TRN and your ID. And when me no walk with cash, me just swipe like that. From abroad to card. Get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card sent from abroad. JN Money Card.
Available at JN Money locations across Jamaica. Conditions apply.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness is reminding the public that excessive heat stress is harmful to health and is potentially fatal.
In order to prevent illness associated with the heat, members of the public are encouraged to drink more water than normal if one is exposed to heat for long periods.
A reminder from Love 101 FM, the family station, in association with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back. You're tuned to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Moving right into the second watch, we continue our discussion on are Jamaican laws under pressure. Our guest from the first watch, or the main watch, Elisa Corrin, has stayed with us. She's the director of the United Nations Advocacy in New York for Alliance Defending Freedom International. And we also have Pastor Bruce Paulson, pastor of the Christian Life Fellowship. Thanks for staying with us, Miss Corin.
Morning.
Miss Corin? Pastor Paulson, I think you're with us now, aren't you? Yes, sir?
Yes. Good morning. Morning, Stokely. Good morning, listeners.
Hey, great having you. Miss Corin, are you still with us? Good morning again, Miss Corin. Seems as if we're having a difficulty hearing Miss Corin. We hope to resolve that in a moment. Pastor Paulson, so you might have heard that the whole matter of our Jamaican laws under pressure. We interviewed in the first wash Dr. Daniel Thomas of the Love March movement, as you may know, and we also had online Elisa Corin, director of Youth Advocacy in New York for Alliance Defending Freedom, and she was essentially indicating to us what inspired her to write an article recently, which was published in the Gleaner on March 26, 2021, where she pointed out pressure or the pressures that developing countries, including Jamaica, come on at the UN level from what she describes as powerful countries, Western countries mostly, which the values that seem to be coming out in the things that she says they're advocating for do not line up so well with the values and mores of persons who live in countries like Jamaica and other places. She touched on one area of comprehensive sexuality education. She looked at abortion briefly, and she generally looked at the fact that, well, from what she's saying, parental rights are being somewhat undermined. She indicated. Do you have any comments on this, sir? Because as a pastor, you have to deal with families. You deal with individuals who come before you, whether in church or in counseling, perhaps, or in other spheres, in the communities. And do you have any comments in relation to that? Because, of course, as we know, Jamaican values are highly Christian. Jamaica is considered to be a Christian country with a strong focus on family. Any comments, sir?
Yeah, well, I think it wasn't a big surprise to me to hear what Miss Corin said. The main thing was to hear it being stated so definitively. But, you know, I do remember probably about 15 years ago having a conversation with some friends, and the debate was whether we should be seeking to use laws to enforce righteousness. And interesting debate. But I remember sharing with some friends at the time that the issue was not so much using laws to enforce righteousness, but recognizing, firstly, that there was a push to, for want of a better term, to encode evil in our laws. And so whilst we were there as Christians advocating that we must be tolerant of people in a pluralistic, other views in a pluralistic society, there was one things going on under the radar to overturn these laws and to encode for evil in our laws. And I think it's interesting because now we have gone so far down the road that nobody's talking anymore about those small things. It's like the gloves are off and the people are going, you know, after things like parental rights, because as Ms. Corin said, parents are the buffer. Parents are the one who, the primary agency of socialization is the family. If you remove the right of parents to raise their children according to the values that they themselves have learned, then somebody steps in and fills that space. And what we are seeing is that some value systems are being imported. It's already bad enough through television but now you're trying to isolate children from their parents. And I think that is something which is of very great concern to us in the church, because we depend very much on, we recognize the dependence of not only the church but the society on the strength of family life. We should be seeking to strengthen family life, not weaken it. The problems that we are having in the nation with crime and violence and disorder are heavily linked to family life issues. So it is distressing to me to hear this. It makes you think, dear God in heaven, what's going to happen in another 10 years? So I think my prayer this morning is that especially pastors will arise and understand that we have a role to play. We need to get off the fence. We need to get off the fence and start taking a stronger stance and against these things. It's just, we can't stand back.
I hear you, Pastor Paulson. Hear you loud and clear, Miss Corin.
Yes.
Miss Corin, I think you're still on. Yes.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. So sorry, we had a challenge hearing you a bit early, but we are hearing you now. You made a point in your article which I want to. I'm so sorry. Okay, we're hearing you now. I think we're hearing you now. If you could speak a little bit directly into your device, that would probably help as well. But we're trying to overcome any challenges that there may be in terms of hearing you clearly. You made a point in your article that I would like to touch on. You mentioned at a certain point that comprehensive, you call it CSE, which of course is comprehensive sexuality education, is not going to solve the problem of gender-based violence. And without authentic solutions to these issues, they will persist. Why do you make that statement? Jamaica, as you may be aware, has a challenge in many quarters in terms of gender-based violence. There are a myriad of incidents, including very recently, where women have been allegedly assaulted and in some unfortunate cases even murdered by others in gender-based violence. Why do you say that CSE is not going to solve that problem?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, I am aware, and I think that's so sad, and definitely an issue that your country is struggling with. And one of the questions that I asked myself when I first encountered these programs, these comprehensive sexuality education programs,
I think we've lost you again,
the logic here, if we really dig into it. Yes.
Please proceed.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, the logic here, it's very insidious. So if you look at this Spotlight program, Jamaica is being provided with $8 million in funds, primarily from the European Union, specifically for this Spotlight program. And Spotlight claims to be the largest international program ever, directly targeted toward ending violence against women and girls. So as we see it, the ostensible aims of this project are very good, not only very good, but very much needed in Jamaica. So at the same time, if we ask the question, what does this have to do with actually helping women and girls? I think we can all agree that every time a woman or a girl is subjected to violence, it's not her fault. There's absolutely nothing that a woman does that justifies the fact that she experienced violence. If you look at it through the lens of the CSE program, somehow you're insinuating that if a woman or a girl receives proper training, if she receives this sexuality education, she's then equipped or she's empowered to avoid violence. And so it really puts the onus on the hands of the victim, in this case, to ward off these threats. When we know the reality, the real end toward violence and discrimination against women comes when you have cultural change. And cultural change comes when you have strong laws on the books and those laws are enforced, so that no one is allowed to hurt a woman without facing due retribution and under the law. And so I think that if you look at it through that lens, it really shows that these programs have nothing to do with helping women. Teaching little girls about deviant sexual practices in no way empowers them in their lives then and when they grow up to be in a situation when they can avoid violence situations, to avoid violence. And so that's the kind of angle that I'm not really seeing, that I'm not really hearing people talk about, and it's so important to really put the focus on that.
We're upon a break. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch. Please stay with us, listeners.
The time by the Ministry of Health, Healthy People, Healthy Environment is...
It is 7:46.
And the buns are being baked. So many buns to choose from, but only one to take home. HTV is the one that's got that baked in quality. Full of fruits and raisins, soft and sweet as a bun can be. So when you're buying Easter buns, look out for HTV. That's the one that's got the taste that's guaranteed to please. HTV.
You are the buzz, 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 buzz. You are the zing, 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 zing. You are the you are the click, 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 click. You are the pop, pop, pop. You are the I in Jamaica. So keep fizzing for the love of it. Pepsi.
Since the 90s, Grace Kennedy Money Services and Western Union have been connecting families at home and abroad. In the 2000s, we did the same, linking generous senders to grateful receivers. And in the 2010s, reaching people in every nook and cranny. Now in the 2020s, when loved ones are forced to be apart, we're here, keeping you connected. Grace Kennedy Money Services and Western Union. 30 years of helping you connect the dots.
La 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 la! It's your one and only fluffy diva, Miss Kitty, aka the Lala Boss, with loads of gifts for you from Digicel. Activate a new 7-day Digicel Prime Barata bundle and get everything you want and more for only $675. Enjoy unlimited YouTube, social media, and local calls. You also get 49 gigabytes for more sports, music, and movies on Digi apps, and 2 gigabytes of any used data. This sound like enough niceness.
Get it all when you activate the new 7-day Digicel Prime Barata bundle in the My Digicel app. Limited time offer.
Stay informed and keep up to date with all the happenings locally, regionally, and internationally. Follow My Jamaica Today on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Also check us out at jamaicatoday.com as we bring you all the information you need wherever you are, with fearless and factual reporting on politics, world news, business, entertainment, sports, and lifestyle. It's My Jamaica Today, Jamaica's first digital media house, only 3 clicks away.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are in this second watch, as we were in the main watch, looking at the matter of whether Jamaican laws are under pressure, the topic being Jamaican laws under pressure. And our guests are Miss Elisa Corrin. She is from Alliance Defending Freedom International. She's the Director of UN Advocacy in New York. And we also have in this second watch, Pastor Bruce Paulson, Pastor Christian Life Fellowship. In the first watch, another guest was Dr. Daniel Thomas of the Love March movement. Now, Ms. Corrin, to look at something you indicated earlier in your article that was published, to sort of go back to that section of the article, you did say, and I want to quiz you on this, it is well understood that should Jamaica capitulate to UN pressures, the rest of the region, I assume in the Caribbean region, is bound to follow in a rapid domino effect, triggering the collapse of long-standing cultural norms. And of course, this piece that you wrote was written for Jamaica and published in a major daily Jamaica newspaper. Why do you say that if Jamaica, or should Jamaica capitulate to UN pressures, the rest of the region is bound to follow? And is this primarily what inspired you to write this article and to have it published in a Jamaican newspaper, madam? Ms. Corin? We seem to be having a challenge hearing Ms. Corin. Pastor Paulson?
Yes, okay.
Yes, we have a little bit of an easier time hearing you, sir. We're having a challenge hearing Ms. Corin. Pastor Paulson, you probably heard what I just read.
Yeah.
Do you see or sense that somehow Jamaica is seen as some sort of is it maybe a role model in the Caribbean? You're trying to decipher what would have led Ms. Corin to have written that statement. As a pastor in the Caribbean pastor Paulson, how do you see Jamaica affecting and influencing other countries in the region in terms of mores and values? If certain laws were to be changed or amended in another Caribbean territory, why wouldn't, in your view, it have the same effect as if Jamaica were to make that change? Any comment?
Well, it is something which we have had. I mean, it's largely anecdotal, but we have seen it in a number of ways. As to it necessarily being so, it might be a little exaggerated, but it is true. Jamaica is a leader in the region on some of these issues. Though the values may be common to us all, the issue is taking a stand against resisting attempts to change these laws. I believe Jamaica plays a leading role. I can't say that if Jamaica were to capitulate that everybody else would, but it would certainly be a huge blow because from where I sit in my interactions with other members of the Caribbean, Jamaica is a huge influence, plays a key role, but there is a thread right through the Caribbean. There are persons who have been made aware, and in different islands they're taking a stand. So I think her fear is justified in large measure, but I'm reminded of Elijah when God said, I have 7,000 who have not bowed the knees to Baal. So God has his people throughout the Caribbean. God has his people right through the Caribbean. But I understand why she says it.
Miss Corin, are you hearing us now? Well, let's see if we are hearing you, Miss Corin. I think she's hearing us, but maybe we are not hearing her. Elisa Corin, are we connecting online here this morning? We seem to be having a little challenge with the line in terms of us hearing her. I think she's hearing us, but we are not hearing her. Hope to bring her back on momentarily. I hope we can have that resolved.
Just to say,
yes, Pastor.
Because really appreciate her sharing this though, because I think it may also help to. I think it will also help to strengthen the Christian community throughout the Caribbean. Because we realize that it's not simply that Jamaica is under attack; it is the entire Caribbean. And a recognition
I think she's widening beyond the Caribbean. If you listen to her carefully, she
right.
was indicating other countries.
Yes, I was speaking as a Caribbean Christian for the moment.
Yes, indeed you are. I'm not being devil's advocate. In fact, I hate that terminology, devil's advocate. But looking at things on the other side, some persons may argue, Pastor Paulson, and if Miss Corin is still hearing us, some persons may argue that it's one thing to want our laws and values to remain as they are, but you have women and girls who might be struggling with particular issues and they believe that abortion can be a viable option. Other persons may argue that what is the challenge really in terms of educating persons in schools in relation to other genders that may not fit what is termed the normal binary of male and female and other related matters. And how do you respond to those persons, Pastor Paul? And if Ms. Corin can still participate, how do you respond, Ms. Corin? I think you're hearing us, but we're not hearing you, because there is another person, there's a group of persons, other groups of persons, call them other constituencies, if you will, that do not necessarily share the types of values that the church, generally speaking, seeks to uphold. Any comments, Pastor Paulson?
Yes, okay. I understand that, and I think when a lot of the social reengineering started, I call it that, the buzzwords was tolerance, compassion, and we have noticed that has quickly moved beyond tolerance and compassion to a point where these minority views, which are not based on any real science, are being enforced on us as a nation under the quiet. We have seen in other jurisdictions, we hear, I read recently that in the United Kingdom, for example, the demand for children to change gender, quote, by biological methods, surgical biological methods, has increased multiple times. And what they have is a budding crisis. In fact, I think the High Court eventually ruled that children need to have parental approval for certain things to be done. But they went ahead and started giving children things like puberty blockers to delay their transition to puberty, so that they can, to facilitate them going through surgery and changing gender, so to speak. And this was against the wishes of parents. So there is a kind of confusion and I call it a kind of alt science. We know that scientifically, it's not changing your biological appearance doesn't make you a woman or a man. There are hundreds, even thousands of markers that make a person male or female. So we see this kind of confusion. We have heard of the confusion in the United States, where the bathrooms designated for women are to be made open for men who, I quote, identify as women. So you're endangering women, even though you claim to be protecting them. We have seen where women's sports is under pressure because men...
Yes, discussion on that here recently, but Pastor Postal just want us to hold that. Ms. Corin, are you hearing us now? Are you back with us? Ms. Corin? Alyssa Corin? I think I think she's hearing us, but we're not hearing her. Pastor Paulson, if you could give us a final thought before we're at this morning, because we're almost at 8 o'clock now. Any final thoughts you want to leave with us in a second or two?
I would encourage us as Christians to recognize that the views postulated in the scriptures as God as creator and the value systems from the scriptures are good. It's not for the four walls of church, but are good for society. And so
are good for society, and I think we have to leave it there this morning only because of time. I want to thank you, Ms. Corin, and I want to thank you, Pastor Paulson. Thank you all listeners for being with us. Join us again tomorrow to look at other topical and controversial issues. To get copies of the program, call our production department at 876-968-95967. Download our Love 101 app and stay connected to us, the family station. This has been The Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guest. I am Stokely Marshall, and get back up in the morning with Siobhan Blair.
Grace Tropical Rhythms